A Volkswagen Corrado is a great modern classic car, but there's one part that's been a big problem for most owners: the sunroof. The parts to fix it are no longer available, but I was fortunate enough to have access to the right people to get the parts remanufactured. This video will show you how you can use these new parts to repair your roof. Okay, so here's me preparing to repair my Corrado sunroof. As you can see, I've got two. This is the original roof that was in the car, which was broken when I bought it. This is the second roof. This one worked when I bought it, but I tried it a few times manually and managed to break it before I even got it into the roof. Hence the need for the repair. The classic cause of the problem, or the effect of the problem, is that the end of this little bit here breaks off. We can see that in there, it's broken off. Nearly always the left hand side. And so I've made some new carriages, and here you can see the new carriage made of high grade stainless steel, and this is to illustrate how we can repair it with that part. So the first stage is to remove the motor from up here off the back of the sunroof. The second stage is to unclip this part here. There's a little circular clip on there. You lever that off and don't lose it. Put it in a bag somewhere. So take that off, take the same off the other side. And then the next stage is to pull this whole mechanism out of the roof. Right, once you've got the mechanism out, you need to detach the end of the carriage from the cable. Obviously it's already broken, but you need to carefully break off the remaining bits of the carriage so that you end up with a fairly good end on here. So you need to try and preserve that as well as you can. Once you've cleaned everything up, obviously you will find that this will lose some of its fluff. It's got like a brush inside it. A lot of that disappears. In fact, you want to get any of the loose stuff off you can, because you don't want that clogging anything up. I don't think these are still available. If they are, obviously you could replace this with a fresh new one, but I'm going to do it with the original. But what we do have to do is to put grease on here. In fact, grease on everything. Once we've cleaned the track, make sure there's no foreign bodies in there. When we put it back together, we'll be greasing it up. When you get the carriages out, you'll see all sorts of horrors, like the rails breaking off inside. That's one of the problems. It lifts and snaps these off. So yeah, make sure you get all of the pieces out that you don't want to leave in there. So before I put all this back together, I just want to show you these new parts. Obviously they're right and left handed, so you need to watch how it came out and make sure you put the right one in the right side. Obviously you'll notice it's stainless steel, not this sort of alloy that was used before. These plastic parts are special oil resistant plastic. This part here, I don't know whether you can see that, is threaded, so there's a thread cut all the way through this in order to bind onto the end of the cable. So the idea is that goes through there, and when you clamp it on with these grub screws and then you crimp the end, it makes a nice sort of solid connection. It bites into this cable. Right, so I'm going to take all the bits off this old carriage assembly and transfer them to the new one. This is quite tricky, so bear with me. pin out, which was a bit of a struggle, but it's out, and then that just lifts off. So there's the old carriage, which has got the traditional broken end. So what I'm going to do next is put some grease onto here. This grease was recommended as a high performance grease. I'm going to grease this up, put this in first, and then I'm going to put the new carriage in, and then the end piece on after that. So yeah, that's the next bit. I'll put a link in the description to all the materials that I've used. You can get pretty much everything I've got here from Amazon except for the custom made parts. Okay, so that bit's in and lubricated. The next stage is to put the cable back in. Again, I'm going to put some grease on that to make sure that it goes okay. So I'm just rotating this and pulling it backwards and forwards to make sure it's nice and clear. Okay. Just clean the end up a bit. Okay, save that for the next side. Okay, so now the new carriage. So as I was saying, this barrel here is threaded with an M3 thread, which should help to bite onto this spiral here. But I'm also going to add some thread lock. This isn't the super strong one, it's just the medium strength one, and that should help to also make sure it binds on as strong as you can. Again, this is available from Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description for it. Okay, so it's thread lock on the actual cable. I'm going to wind that back on. Okay, and when I put these little screws in, I'm going to put a bit of thread lock in the hole as well. Just that tiny little bit. Okay, and then magnetic tool. So these grub screws just go in nice and straight. Make sure they're straight before you try and tighten them up. Don't tighten them fully yet. Okay. Lost it. Where's it gone? Very fiddly. Okay. Nice and straight. Okay. Right. So they're all just in a little bit now. So now I'm going to put some pressure on it. Now, the reason for using this tool, it gives you a bit more purchase on it. They're not going to go all the way in. Just going to tighten them as much as you can. And what we'll do at the end is we have to file the tops off. So they'll go in until they start to slip. The tool will slip, but don't worry about that. You're just locking it in as much as you can. Most of the work's going to be done by the crimp on the end. Okay, so those are in. The next stage is to crimp the end. So I'm going to supply one of these for each side, these little aluminium pieces. Obviously they're exactly the size you need, so I'll supply those. And you also need this tool, which is a Draper Expert crimper. You're going to use the hole marked as 10. Again, I'll put a link in the description for where you can get these. They're about 8 or 9 quid, they're not expensive. Okay, so here we go. Okay, that's crimped on the end. Now that won't slide in as it is, even though it's the same size as the barrel. The crimp distorts it slightly, so you need to file the bottom to make it round again. This aluminium is really soft, so it's dead easy to file. So we'll just move it off the end here and file it round. As well as filing it round, you also need to put a little bevel on the end, and it's not easy to show, but it's going to like chamfer the edge. The next thing to do is to just flatten off the top of the grub screws now, make them flush with the tube, and just tighten them once more just to make sure. As I say, they won't go all the way in because the wire inside is almost the same size as the tube. Now you just need to try it, see if it fits. If you need to sand it all off. Just a little bit more to come off there. Just a little bit more off here. There we go. some more grease on that. Okay, so the next stage is to link this up with this by putting these pins back in. Okay, so I've brought this mechanism back down this end. There's my new carriage, and I'm just going to make sure that this is okay. I'm going to put this back in as well. I've inspected this, it all looks pretty good. Let's get some grease on it. I don't know if it's possible to put too much grease on, but we'll see. Okay, so that goes in that way, I think. Let's try once more. That needs to go through there. Forgot this bit, that's got to go through there. Get it right this time. Okay, getting there. So now this is going to go through here. Right, so this section I'm putting the carriage back together. It's basically just the reverse of taking it apart, just putting all the bits back on, including the little spring clips that hold the shaft in place. The little handle that's spring loaded, and instead of boring you with all the details, I'll just show you what it looks like when it's finished at the end. Okay, so I've done this side, taken some pictures of that so you can see up close, and now I'm going to focus on this side. So exactly the same, just got to cleaned all this up, and this has all been cleaned and dried, and now I'm going to pop this back in with some grease, and then I'm going to put the new carriage in the middle, and then this bit on the end, the same as I did before. Okay, so next stage, take out the little grub screws like before. Make sure they don't roll away. Get some thread lock. And there. Wind on the carriage. screws back in. The end. Make sure it's tight as you can get to the end. So push it on while you crimp. Nice and tight. And that's that. File that down. What happens is it goes a bit square on the bottom, so you just need to make it round again. As I say, it's very soft aluminium, so it's quite easy to shape it. You'll know if it's right because it'll go in nice and smoothly when it's right, like that. Okay, that's that. Now we have to get this one on. Need to get that pin through there. I did rescue some little rubber caps. Not sure how important they are, but if you've got them, put them on. That's one. arm to go on. Okay, so the next stage is to make sure that these are all pushed forward. This is down, and make sure that it's all perfectly aligned so that we can add the motor. So we need to push these forward until these bits here push down the wind deflector. Like that, see it's gone down. Okay, let's get them lined up. This needs to drop into the little catch, I think. A bit more. Right, that's gone in. That's it. So both of those hammers have dropped into the hole in the track. So in theory they should both be in the right place. So now I need to flip this over, put the motor on, and then we can do some testing. Right, so this is the crucial part. I'm now winding this. Now, I've just wound it a couple of turns and you can see that they're not perfectly aligned. So this part here is closer than this guy. It's about 1 millimetre out. But these have got to be exactly together. Otherwise it's going to be a problem. So what I need to do is take the motor off again, move this slightly so it matches this side, put the motor back on. Okay. Okay, so the motor's off. I need to move this just 1 millimetre or so to make sure it lines up the same as that side. So I've wound this backwards and forwards a few times. The mechanism's running nicely, but I have noticed something, that when I bring these back, it drops into the slot correctly, carries on to the end, but when I go back, the rocker arm on this side is sitting higher than that one. So I'm not sure whether it's because the rocker arm shaft is bent or what it is. I've seen someone online talking about putting a little cable tie or thickening the little rubber bush on the end, but I think I've got another one of these anyway, so I think I might try swapping that out. But let me just show you it running backwards and forwards anyway. Okay, well, if you can, I don't know whether you can see, but this one seems lower than this one. I'm going to wind it back in and see what happens. So if you see now, that rocker arm there is just below there, which is where it should be. This one here is sort of level with it, so that could potentially jam. But if it was just half a mil lower like that, it would work perfectly. So I've discovered the problem. Obviously the rubber on the end has got squashed over time. It's no longer serving its purpose. So I've produced a much thicker, tougher rubber that I'm fitting to the end, and as you can see, this rubber solves the problem, makes the roof work properly. I'll supply a new rubber with the kit when I supply it, so that you don't have to go looking for the right rubber. There'll be one in the kit. So yeah, this should fix it, as you can see. Now that this is fixed, the next job is to get this frame back into the car and get it all set up. So the sunroof is in. The next thing to do is, obviously I've taken the motor off. I need to calibrate the motor so the sunroof mechanism is in the closed position, and I've got to get the motor into the closed position so they can calibrate and work together. Okay, so I've put the sunroof on loosely, attached it by the screws at both ends, and made sure it's in the closed position. And now I'm going to adjust the top. If you look here, it's still movable, and what I need to do is adjust it so that the front is 1 millimeter down and the back is 1 millimeter up, and obviously that it's level both sides and it's centered right to left. Okay, right, so the roof's in the closed position. I'm going to operate the mechanism manually to bring it up to the tilt position. Okay, there it is, it's full tilt position, and now back down to closed, and I'm going to carry on to the slide back position. There it goes, mechanism's engaged, now it's sliding back.
Fully back, now forward again to the closed position.
Okay, done. Okay, once you've finished manually positioning the sunroof, the next thing to do is to calibrate the motor. So you need to take the motor off the sunroof and make sure that you flip this little cover back over the Allen key, because that actually operates a contact, and if you don't do that, the motor's disengaged, so it will just click and the motor won't move. So make sure that cover is in the right position, and then you're ready to start calibrating the motor. So the idea of the calibration is to make sure that the motor is in the same position as the sunroof mechanism. So you attach the power cables, turn on the ignition to the ACC position. So first press the closed button and let the motor run to stop, then the open button and let it run till it stops, then closed again, then tilt and then finally back to closed again, and that will make sure the motor's in the right position. So the final stage is to put the motor back on. Now it's calibrated, and away you go. Your roof is now fixed, and yeah, you've got a Corrado with a fully working sunroof. If you think this video will help you fix your sunroof, then hit the like button so that more Corrado owners will find it. You can subscribe to see me continue to work on my Corrado, and follow the links to my Corrado project Facebook page where you can order the new parts.